now under 90 seconds to go. Everyone is entering into the start box, guys. This is where the strategy begins. Freddie, walk us through what's going to happen here over the course of the next 80 seconds.
Next 80 seconds, you're looking at the start line here. You're trying to figure out where you're going to position your boat when the gun goes. In the lighter airs, the top of the line has been favoured. It is high risk at the bottom of the line, because if you get overtaken from the boats at the top, then everybody is going to overtake you. The other thing that stands out to me here, Matt, is the start box is small, and that's why they're entering this zone so late.
Makes it very difficult for them. They have to come in there, you know, we've only less than a minute to go, and they're only just entering the box. And you can see the boundaries right there in front of them. So getting your setup right, getting towards the line and getting yourself in a good position is going to be a little bit more difficult for the boat.
It's very interesting here that the fleet is split in half. 5 boats approaching from the bottom of the line, 5 boats coming from the top of the line. Looks like the Japanese are a long way back. It looks like they're taking the approach that they're going to try and stay on the foil and keep maximum speed in. We've got USA, New Zealand and GBR lining up for that mid-line launch. The Japanese are still the fastest boat on the race course. Can they thread the needle in behind the Americans? Still looking at the Japanese for great speed here. 9 seconds to go, very close.
Here we go, 5 seconds to go, race number 1 at the Great Britain Sail Grand Prix.
And the gun goes, the Danish are just over there. OCS, it looked like they were going to get a perfect start, but that is not the case. The Danish were over early. They're going to get relegated to the back of the fleet.
This is the umpires, OCS Denmark, OCS Denmark, target New Zealand, target New Zealand.
Race official confirms that the Danish were OCS. Let's jump to the front of the fleet again, and it's Australia that launched off the bottom of the line. A risky place to launch from, but it looks like they've got the boat on the foils. That means double quick into Mark 1.
Tom Slingsby in Australia, the defending champions in SailGP, out in front. Just off the right-hand side is France, the USA, currently sitting in 3rd. The wind is picked up from what was projected, and so this should be a really good race today here in the first of 3.
Big moment coming up here, Todd. This is the first jibe of the race, and the boundary's coming up quick, so all of these boats have got to throw a jibe in very, very quickly. You've got to throw a jibe in and keep the boat out of the water. Don't let those holes touch. A lot of shouting there between the French and the USA. I'm sure there'll be a penalty flag. Back to the Australians, they stayed on the foil. This is an opportunity for the Australians to sail away.
And the start is going to be so key in this race. The conditions are fairly even. The breeze is coming off.
Penalty France, relative
penalty
USA.
France for that one. So they must have been to weather. They were keep clear boat in that situation. They didn't keep clear of the New Zealand boat. But yeah, it's a very even breeze coming off the English Channel, and that's why it's key to get a good start. So Australians are in that happy place from where they were in season 1.
So the Australians have settled down into their onboard patter. The conversation we're hearing now is of the Australian boat. They're talking about standby. This is their second jibe of this downwind. Let's stay on board. Mark Spearman crossing the boat.
Angle, speed.
Listen to we're good here, more speed, just a constant performance dialogue as they lead to Mark 1.
2, 1.
So leg 2 of 7, it's Australia out in front. The defending champions have the lead. The Americans sitting second after they were infringed upon by the French, who have dropped back to 3rd.
And look at the boats tacking there already. It shows you how close that boundary is to that right-hand mark as they go around. All the boats are coming this way, but they're all going to have to tack immediately because the boundary and the spectator boats are very close this side. Look, you can see it right there.
And here's the first boat to split. So we've got New Zealand and Japan coming round together, very close. And keep an eye on the Spanish there, the first boat to go to the opposite side of the course.
It would be nice if you can get around that left-hand mark like the Spanish, because you're going to get a nice long carry down in speed and a nice long port out to that right-hand boundary.
Australia out in front. They got the proverbial hole shot on race number 1 of 3 today here in Britain's Ocean City.
This is the umpires, boundary penalty Japan, boundary penalty Japan.
Man, that boundary
really with an unforced air there.
That boundary comes up so quick out of that leeward gate. It really is a bit of a skewed race course. It's 1 kilometre from top to bottom, but the way the course is jammed into our racing pitch, it makes the boundary come up so fast. Japan have had to pay for that.
Especially difficult when you've got a boat right next to you too. You're having a look at them. The numbers come up on a screen in front of them. They know, it tells them how many metres are from the boundary, but very difficult when you're focused on something else.
That's interesting. That's the voice of Rome Kirby saying, keep the pressure calls coming here, guys. He's the middle guy of those 5. He's the flight controller, and he's controlling the foils that keep these boats up and ripping, and he's relying on wind calls from the other people on the boat to keep him dialed in perfectly.
Back on board with Australia, who have the lead. As we've mentioned, they were the defending champions from last year. But it's amazing to think of Australia sitting in 6th place overall, the U.S. in 7th because of bad luck in the first 2 events in Bermuda and Taranto, Italy, respectively.
We saw a touch-and-go tack, as we call it there. They couldn't foil through the tack, so they did a nice job of holding what speed they could through it. They came out with one hole and then just slowly got the boat back out of the water and up speed. Tells you that it's sort of sub 18 kilometers an hour wind speed, fairly light, just enough to get back on the foils.
We're on board with Phil Robinson here in the Spanish boat, overall leader in season 2. Oh, that's an ugly tack. You saw the bows go down and seriously wash off some boat speed here.
Doing it the right way, though, is Australia SailGP Tom Slingsby. Olympic gold medalist. We've talked about the replacements they've had to make because of the upcoming Olympics, as several of their sailors have had to step off the boat, but they're making it work here on race number 1.
They're making it work here in race 1, and they have had to bounce back from their worst ever result in SailGP. Last in Taranto in the last event, and here they go. What a way to rewrite your scoreboard by leading this race.
And the Americans and French quite close together. Once again, remember, it was early on that the French were assessed a penalty as they forced the Americans out on boundaries, so the USA taking full advantage of that, having the right of way as they came into that gate.
It's good to see this team doing well too, with the frustrations they've had with that bad luck that we showed in the feature in the show. If they didn't have that bad luck, they could be sitting on top of the leaderboard right now. The 2 events, at low times, they easily could have got an extra 4 points, 5 points, and that would put them on top of the leaderboard.
They're talking about a duck here, Matt, on the Japanese, ducking behind the Spanish. The Spanish got out of phase. They've taken a place here.
Wow.
Nathan Atteridge, wow, just behind the Spanish, and they're going to split gates at close to 50 kilometers an hour, 90 kilometers an hour closing speed. What great driving there. What great helming by Nathan Atteridge to take the transom of the Spanish.
And another tight crossing. Denmark and New Zealand for 6th and 7th place respectively. Nathan Atteridge, is there anyone you'd rather have thread the needle other than Atteridge?
Great shot looking down the race course there. We got the Australians top of picture, 53 kilometers an hour leading. The rich are getting richer. They had the best start and they've sailed away, clean maneuvers. Nick Hutton, local Devon lad, crossing the boat there, jumping into his trimming cockpit. He's now in charge of the front sail, the jib. That will add 20% more power as they accelerate into their final little gate.
This is the Australia we're used to seeing, isn't it? Just put a bit more confidence, really tight, good maneuvers. They had a lot of crew changes. They lost their original flight controller, and then they lost Chili Fowler's replacements. They lost Jason and they lost Kinley. A bit of disruption, but this is what we're used to seeing from them. They're this really tight-knit unit that sail the boat really, really well. Lots of experience on board on the F-50.
Australia speeding away, starting to grow their advantage. The Americans currently sitting in 2nd place with Jimmy Spithill looking to turn their season around. They looked good in Bermuda until they had the collision with Japan. They looked great in Taranto, Italy until they had the underwater connection. And here they are trying to make amends at the Great Britain Sail Grand Prix in Plymouth.
Around in 3rd is the French, Billy Besson. He's my wildcard team. I love watching Billy sail. He's such a live wire.
A lot of congestion on the left side of that course as France follows the USA. So that's 1, 2, and 3, Australia, America, and France. And then the rest of the field well behind with Japan, Spain, New Zealand, Denmark, and Great Britain.
And we saw the cross at the top between the Japanese and the Spanish. The Japanese have leapfrogged the Spanish on this downwind up into 4th.
It looks decent on boundary, eh? Definitely lighter in general, pressing.
There we go. So that's the voice of Tom Slingsby talking about the wind, saying it's lighter in general. And I tell you what, you can tell when Tom Slingsby's having a good race through the tone of his voice. He is maximum chill there as he's leading the first race here in Plymouth. Stand by, tap, off goes Carl Langford. Sprints to the other side of the boat, and that is a hard thing to do on a trampoline at 40 kilometers an hour.
Coming down.
They do probably their last tap of their race. We've got one up wind gate, a sprint to the last downwind gate, and then into the finish.
Another touch and go tap at the top. That does show that it is a little bit lighter over on that top left-hand side, probably affected by the wind coming around the headlands on the west side of
don't cheat it,
Plymouth
don't
Sound.
cheat it.
So that does mean there are opportunities out there, different wind gradients across the course, but not that many that it'd make you feel comfortable when you've got a decent lead like the Australian team does over this US team right now.
Pop, when you hear the boys saying pop on board, that means they're trying to get the boat out of the water. When you get the boat out of the water, you get the boat foiling. When you get the boat foiling, you double your boat speed. So when you hear the word pop, that means use the rake of the dagger board to get the boat out of the water and get that thing ripping.
And if you're looking at this image on your screen right now, that is Australia, the defending champions, picture perfect foiling right there. It's Tom Slingsby and company doing everything right here in the first of 3 races in Plymouth. And then remember, tomorrow 3 more races, and the last race is the final race, which only allows the top 3 point getters from this event to race.
I can't believe we've done 2 windward lewads, so effectively 2 laps,
Right.
and we're under 10 minutes into the race. This is where SailGP is so much fun to watch. It's so good.
So that last tack there by the Australians was a foiling tack, so it does suggest there might be slightly better pressure over on that left-hand side of the course.
So this is mark number 5. For those of you keeping track at home, they'll go one more time up, and then it is a short blast to the finish line, and race number 1 will go the way of the Australians, and look at that advantage.
Big dogfight in the mid-fleet pack here. I'm looking at France, I'm looking at Spain, and I'm looking at the Japanese. There's plenty going on in that mid-fleet battle with the Australians and the Americans slightly ahead of them.
Remember, it's all about gaining points. You want enough points so on tomorrow when that final race comes around, you're in the top 3 and you have a chance to win the overall.
That's right, Todd. Every point is vital. We usually see the difference between making the final and not making the final down to about 2 points. So this little, for that, those guys in the back of the pack there, just beating the boat in front of you, not losing a place, could make all the difference when it comes to making the final in tomorrow's racing.
So France sits in 3rd, Spain in 4th, Japan in 5th.
We're coming up for another close cross at the top here. We've got the Spanish coming in on port, the French coming in on starboard. I think the French will just cross ahead. The next focus point is the Spanish versus the Japanese. It's a role reversal of the last leg. And Phil Robertson takes the transom of the Japanese. This is going to be a simultaneous rounding at the top. Wow-wee, they get exactly the same time as they go onto the last downwind leg and then into the finish.
Well done, all the skippers there, keeping it clean, avoiding any contact. Contact is forbidden by the rules, but it's often hard in these conditions. Boats, you're trying to duck one boat, you've got another boat just close to him too.
Meanwhile, back at the top of the course, it is Australia looking very good, still up on the foils, sailing. You see the wind speed, they could double, sometimes triple that, as they will have one more maneuver to make, and then it'll be into the finish.
Going max stiff. Right. And max stiff now.
And Ed Powie is sitting in the middle of that group of 5. He's the flight controller. He's making this boat fly beautifully. This is some of the hardest conditions to fly the boat. He stepped on here in Plymouth, and he's opened his account with a win and 8 points.
And look at the speed for Australia. Now they're just showing off. Look at that, pushing nearly 60 kilometers an hour on a day that they expected extremely light wind. Australia's showing the same form that they had last year.
Over triple the wind speed. That is unbelievable. And listen to the hum of the foils. This is full sendy mode from the Australians. Let's listen as they cross the finishing line.
Okay, here guys, so stand by. 4 down.
Race number 1 in Plymouth goes the way of the Aussies.
I'll tell you one man who's pleased about that. It's local boy Nick Hutton, local Devon boy Nick Hutton. We've got 4 Australians on board, and then our wild card Nick Hutton. It's very much a nation versus nation, but he'll be grinning from ear to ear. This is where he grew up sailing.
And the Americans coming in with Jimmy Spithill at the helm. They had a great race. It was just the start. They really didn't give up a lot of distance to the Australians guys throughout that race. They maintained their position, but as fast as Slingsby was going, that is difficult. Slingsby is on point today. You know Spithill will take the points with second, but you know him well, Freddie. He's going to want first in the next race.
No doubt. And look at that, the Spanish just creeping ahead of the Japanese. We knew this dogfight in the middle of the pack was hectic. And it looks to me like the French, the Japanese and the Spanish are on a proper sprint into the finish. And it's the French that have popped out in front.
So there's third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. As we remember back in Toronto, it was 1 point that separated several boats from getting into the final race and competing for the overall. So these points are valuable. France is on a full-on throttle.
Settling it down a little bit, it's too many decisions. It's too,
That's the voice of Lee McMillan suggesting they need to settle it down. How those guys sail, they actually sail best when they fire it up, in my opinion.
France third, Spain the overall leaders in the series this year. They take fourth. And a big surprise for me, guys, Nathan Outteridge finishing in fifth place with Japan.
Yeah, they won't be happy with that. They're making a bit of a charge. Very bad first event, obviously, with the collision and everything else that happened. But they were by far the top team in Toronto, winning that at a canter, and very disappointed about that.
Denmark coming in seventh place, so they will pick up just the 2 points. And Paul Goodison, Great Britain, for a boat that won the event in Bermuda to kick off the season, they are really struggling. Not the result they're looking for, and they've dug themselves an early hole.
Yeah, not good for the home team there. They'll be hoping for a really good event. Paul Goodison is keeping the seat warm for Ben Ainsley, but he sees this as a good opportunity to come and sail in this brilliant fleet. Olympic gold medalist in the laser class, just like Tom Slingsby and Ben Ainsley. He'd really want to prove himself in this fleet race.
But it's Australia that takes the win in race number 1 in Plymouth.
So the race is going to go on from 15 minutes from the start gun, but the most important part of the race is going to happen in the next 1 minute and 10 seconds. We saw the Australians in race 1. They got off the line beautifully. They went on and sailed away. So although we're not into the guts of the race now, the decisions that are made in the next 60 seconds are the most important of race 2.
And it's all about not getting bogged down in the pack. We saw how difficult that was for those sort of 4 or 5 teams that finished behind the first 2. Very, very difficult.
And we've got a similar look to start 1. We've got 5 teams at the bottom repeating that formula, and we've got the same 3 teams coming in from the top and trying to stay on the foil and trying to do the time run into the line. There's going to be some jiggery-pokery here between Great Britain and Australia. Great Britain has got a penalty. They can shake that off.
This is the umpires. That's a penalty GBR, relative to Australia.
So they got a penalty on Australia. They've got to shake that off before the start.
So,
the Spanish are coming from the top here. They look pretty famous,
Australia,
as do the Danes. I'd like to be in the boats doing a time run right now. 9 seconds to go. The Spanish put the bow down. If they get a pop on here and get an acceleration, they will absolutely launch onto the race course. Have they nailed it? As the gun goes, they could be a little deep. Australia on a good spot again. And it's the Australians who get the start again.
So Australia gets the jump on race number 2 with France just off the left-hand side. The Americans look to be a good spot, but they get crowded out. And this is the chaos before the calm, and they hit mark number 1.
God, hit repeat, Tom Slingsby. That's exactly how he managed his last minute in the pre-start of race 1. He's done it again, and he's sailing away from the fleet. The French are holding onto his coattails as they come into mark 1. Again, the pressure will be on the jibe after this acceleration moment. Look for the boat speeds to go above 70 kilometers an hour as they rip around mark 1.
The Australians started there with a very similar setup as they did in the first race. They found a nice little formula, and it's working for them. And sailing's all a confidence game, isn't it, Freddie? And you can see that their tails are up, their chests are puffed, and they're enjoying their racing out there in Plymouth Sound.
So at mark number 1, it's Australia once again out in front. France sits in second, New Zealand up to third with Spain, and the USA dropping off to 5th place. And the home team, Great Britain, really struggling here on this second race.
And the pressure still looks very even across the race course, and I think just like the last race, that start will have been really key, and I expect to see the Australians extend and defend this lead they've got probably all the way to the finish, and the pack behind is where all the action's going to be.
We're going to go right turn, I think.
That's the voice of Tom Slingsby saying we're going to go right turn. So casual, Tom Slingsby and Carl Langford at the back of the boat. Tom Slingsby, Olympic gold medalist. He's won the America's Cup. He's won the Moth Worlds. One of the best sailors in the world. As they do their final jibe into gate 2. Local boy Nick Hutton holding on for dear life as he jumps out of the cockpit. And look at him race across the boat. Seriously impressive athletes, these guys.
that relationship. Carl Langford and Tom Slingsby, they've done a lot of sailing together as they go around here. This next mark in the lead.
This is almost a carbon copy of what they've done in race number 1. This is race 2 of 3 on the day. And once again, it's Australia out in front. France having another great run. Remember, they had a good run in race number 1 until the penalty was assessed. That allowed the Americans to move into second.
On board with the French, Billy Besson, driving the boat, his red wheel. Getting some advice there from Lee McMillan to fly the boat. As the Danish go round in 4th, and the Americans are the first boat to choose the opposite gate as the Danish roll into a JK, which is a round-up tack. So they've used their downwind speed to burn a manoeuvre up the race course, and they'll be one of the first boats heading out to the right-hand side, but it looked like it got a bit sticky.
Guys, let's talk about the start again. You said this is going to be a critical portion, and watch the boats on the bottom and then the big crowd at the top.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the Spanish who are trying to burn some speed, weaving in from the top, but look at the Golden Kangaroo. With about 6 seconds to go, they casually slide their bow down. They're talking about boat speed. Boom, the gun goes. And they're the fastest boat in the fleet, closest to the line. It's pretty simple when you see it like that.
Yeah, and you see the boats at the bottom, all 5 of them, 6 of them piled up down there, and that gave just free rein for the French and the Australians to have such a great start. Slingsby, as we said before, he is absolutely on point today, Freddie. What is the difference from what we saw in practice the last 2 days to what we're seeing from him today?
Yeah.
He's got 5 people on board. The practice has been 3-man crews. He's got 5 people on board. That could be one thing. Hey man, he's a confident sailor. He must have got some good time runs in before the start. His warm-up must have been good. The energy must be up on the boat. And they sound so calm on board compared to what we saw in Taranto in similar conditions when it was fractious. This is super calm from the Australians.
But also, as you said, Taranto was a lot of 3-man sailing, and we know he wasn't very comfortable with it, and I think he got it in his head. And the practice that we saw yesterday when it was 3-man, I think that was still there. They don't like the 3-man sailing. He's comfortable when he's got his 5 guys on board.
So momentarily, the Australians had one of the holes in the water,
On the inside, we're
and
going
they
to work
picked
on
up
hydro.
enough speed to pop both
It is
up and
really
now
right
foiling.
gate favoured. Looking at that. Copy.
He's talking about it's really right gate favoured. So he's talking about you go not round one mark, but you go through a gate and get to choose which mark you go round. So he's looking upwind and deciding which mark is going to be closest to him and launching onto the downwind, the middle downwind of the race.
You can see the French there. They're one of the boats, as you said, Freddie, that haven't changed their crew since the start of the season and are therefore under pressure. Looks like the Danes on the other side, just before we saw this shot, were close to them.
A little bit bow down there.
Gate number 3, Australia still out in front. France in second. Denmark has moved up to 3rd. The Americans, who finished 2nd in the first race, have now dropped back to 6th.
Rolling down.
This is a big moment for the grinders.
Trying to keep a hook up here.
Moving the wing sheet, spinning his arms at the front of the boat, moving the white winch for Carl Langford, holding a rope. Carl Langford's the throttle man. He's making sure the wing snaps back on and they can hit the top speeds of 50 kilometers an hour as they go into the downwind.
Tight crossing here. Denmark dipping behind France.
Real high mode, right? Good, copy. High runners. Yeah.
That's Denmark SailGP, presented by Rockwell, Nikolai Sehested.
Coming down.
The helmsman there, and they will be next up to host SailGP next month.
So the French, after that great start, are slowly getting sucked back into this pack. They don't want to do that.
So at the halfway point, it is still Australia out in front, winners of race number 1. The Americans making up some ground here. They are now sitting in 5th place with an opportunity to possibly overtake Spain, and they do that now into 4th.
On board with the Spanish here, Phil Robertson holding his yellow wheel, driving the boat. Lovely addition to the Spanish crew in this event. Xavi Fernandez, the wing sheet trimmer, Olympic gold medalist, Olympic silver medalist. He's been around the world more times than I've had hot dinners. What a Spanish sailing legend.
The leaderboard on the left side of your screen, it is all Australia as it was in the first race. The Americans losing that position back to Spain, so that's a good battle going on in the middle. But the big surprise, guys, for me, Japan at the bottom of the heap in 8th.
They got left behind at the start. They were too far away, and they just never got back into the fleet.
Okay. Stand by.
Standing by for the jibe. They're repeating the formula they did from race 1. They're repeating the formula they did from the first lap. They like going out to this bottom left-hand side of the course, even though the boundary comes early for Matt, they do like this bottom left, and then it looks to me like they like the top right, and it's about linking those two patches together as you sail upwind.
That's right, they like to do that long port tack all the way across the course, but they're keeping it very simple too. They're tending to sail from boundary to lay line. They're minimising their manoeuvres, so minimising their distance around the race course.
So every time you manoeuvre the boat, every time you do a tack on the upwind or a jibe on the downwind, the boat slows down. So you're looking in these light airs not to do many of those turns.
If you're pulling for Team USA, they're currently sitting in 5th place. Remember, they finished in 2nd place in the first race, but they have opportunities now with just about a lap and a half to go to maybe make a move up as we go back on board with France.
3, 2, 1, okay, round up.
I was worried about them at the last top mark when they just seemed to be getting sucked back into that pack, but they've done a nice job of getting a bit of a stretch on those guys again now. With just 3 legs to go, and that's pretty important, I'd say, for the French team to hang on to the 2nd place.
Early tack has been called by Phil Robson here on the Spanish. They've got great speed, lovely route in there, expect board to drop. If they nail attack here, they'll be putting pressure on the French. It's a lovely leeward mark rounding. Let's see if they can keep a foiling tack going. They'll also be very mindful of the Danish, who have split the course and are going out the other side. The French, the Danish and the Spanish are locked for 2nd place.
Actually, no, Danish out the right. They're looking pretty good at the moment, but good pressure here for us.
That's the voice of Tom Slingsby. He's also assessed that the Danish are the first out to the right, and he said good pressure here for us. That means good wind.
The Americans also going onto that side of the course. So you got to look at the roster for the Australians.
Great on-board shot there. You can see the guys in the front cockpit are consistently spinning their arms. They're consistently trimming the wing with Carl Langford. You might think it's light airs, so it's going to be a little bit easy, but in the lighter airs, it's harder to capture that wing, so you have to be more dynamic with it.
Still close in that pack. The French have sort of been dragged back into it again. The Danes went off to that left-hand mark and over to the... We call it the left-hand mark as you look at it as you're coming into it, that right-hand side of the course, and they've made a little gain out there, so the French will still be nervous. They don't want to get sucked back into this pack, because before you know it, you lose your 2nd place to 3rd, and then you can be 4th and 5th. It's really, really tight. There's a bit of a pitfall there for those guys. They've got to stay clear of it.
And there is the battle between 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. France in danger of losing out. Nicolas Sehested in Denmark on the charge. Did they choose the right side? Look at the speed difference, as Denmark has certainly found the pressure on that side of the course. But don't forget Spain, the overall leaders in the series right now, still hitting 36 kilometers an hour.
Look at that graphic there. You can see Mark 1, first at Mark 1, first now, second at Mark 1, second now. Danes have made a nice little gain. They've taken a couple of boats, but it shows you how key that start was. But as I said, the pack is tight, and that's where the gains can be made. I don't think Australia will be caught now. They've shown a clean pair of heels to these guys. So now that's as close as we've seen a boat to them there. But they look like they're sailing their own race. They can do what they want. They can dictate it. That's where they're happiest. They like even race courses because their manoeuvres are very good when it's not fluky. And I think we'll see these guys see this one out, but looks like Denmark have taken 2nd place, and here we go, they're crossing the French there. The Danes are in 2nd place. They had to keep clear of the French there, but they were clearly ahead. Looks like they might make this top mark, and that'd be really good for this Danish team, which also hasn't changed crew. So also one of those 3 teams that need to have a good event here. It's an opportunity.
It is a very calm boat on board Australia SailGP. Defending SailGP champions from 2020. Their skipper, Tom Slingsby, the Olympic gold medalist, having that lead. There you see the advantage, 12 seconds over Denmark, who has moved into 2nd. France dropping back to 3rd. Spain in 4th, the USA in 5th.
Race is sailing fast. They had a bit of a turnaround race in the last regatta for me. Race 5 in Taranto, they had their first top half finish in this season. They've carried that positive energy here. 2nd place in race 2 here in Plymouth.
It was a bit of a slow top mark running for the Danish though, wasn't it? So the French have done a better job, and you can see them already kind of getting down inside them there.
Feels to me like the breeze is trending down all over the course from this helicopter shot. It doesn't seem quite as lively as we saw previously. There'll be conversations on board now about potentially changing their manoeuvres as the wind seems to be stepping down to 16, 15 kilometers an hour. That's about 7 knots in old money.
And everyone other than the Australians right now, guys, have got to be starting doing a little math in their head, crack out the abacus, because if you're the Americans and you're sitting in 5th, couple that with a 2nd place, you need to have a huge performance in the 3rd and final race of the day if you want to make the cut for the last race tomorrow.
And again, if you can just pick off that one boat in front of you, you can make all the difference.
Put a bit in the bank. Okay, stand by. Put down.
It's great to see Tom Slingsby there. He wasn't looking over his shoulder. That shows you they're really happy with their position. They're not worried about the boat behind him. They've got that nice lead. Pointed in towards the finish, or the last gate, I should say.
And if you're new to SailGP, all these boats are tuned identical. The only thing you'll see differently is on the wings, each one having their own little sponsor and having an opportunity to race for their causes. Of course, the parlay on board the Aussies, which is the Aussies' way to a greener future and a cleaner home and a ocean for kids and their kids. So Planet Plastic on board Japan. So a lot of great things being done out there on the water in the race for the future. But this is all about winning for Australia, and they're going to make it 2 for 2 here on the first day of racing up to, remember, tomorrow championship Sunday still to come with 3 races, 2 fleet races plus the final race where only the top 3 will get in it. But man, Saturday has belonged to the Aussies. Tom Slingsby and company have done everything right, regaining the form they had back in 2020, and they will take the first 2 races of the day. A huge win here at the Great Britain Sail Grand Prix. Tom Slingsby and company take a bow.
Put down.
Applauded off the
Nice
fans
work,
on
guys.
Plymouth
Great
home.
job, Ed. Nice, boys.
Great job, Ed. That's Ed Powies. He's referring to his flight controller, the guy that
rolling
I
up.
think's got quite a bit of pressure on him. What pressure? 2 races, 2 bullets, 2 wins.
Right, Freddie, he's never done this role before. He's sailed F50s a lot, either used as a trimmer or as a wing trimmer or a grinder. So he's doing a cracking job. 2 great bullets for him.
Great finish for Denmark SailGP, presented by Rockwell.
3, 2, 1, turning up.
And the Danes will claim 2nd.
Get run up.
Billy Besson in France coming in 3rd, so back-to-back 3s. So you do the math, guys. They're, other than Australia, they're sitting pretty good.
Bravo, says Billy Besson to his boys. Fist pumps at the front. Nice work, guys,
3:04.
from Macmillan.
So we've got 11 minutes,
And
okay?
Macmillan's already talking them into the 3rd start. I love that. Forget that race. Let's get on to the next one, lads.
Spain will crack on and take 4th.
Nice. We'll check over here, guys. Hey,
Disappointing performance for the Americans. After a strong 2nd place finish in race number 1, they will come in and claim 5th. So they're going to need a big bounce back, Freddie, I imagine, in race number 3 if they want to sleep better tonight rather than worry about those points on Sunday.
I agree. In these lighter conditions on such a small race course, if you bang in a bunch of top half, if you're 4 and up over the course of the day, you go to bed pretty happy. 5th, you're pretty happy. Back 3, you're having a head scratch with your coaches.
And here's the problem for the rest of the crew: New Zealand, Great Britain, and Japan. Arno Sarafagas coming through in 6th place. He's filling in, of course, for Peter Burley, who's off to Tokyo for the Olympic Games. And then Paul Goodison filling in for Ben Ainsley. Congratulate him and his family for the birth of their son, Fox. They will finish in 7th with Japan. Big surprise there, Nathan Outeridge. Winners in Italy, they finish in 8th in 2nd race of the day. 90 seconds to go until the 3rd and final race here at the Great Britain Sail Grand Prix. Todd Harris, Freddie Carr, Matt Cornwell with you guys. It's all about accumulating the mass amount of points so you can get in that final race, Freddie. And we've got some good stories brewing in the middle of the pack.
We've got some good stories brewing everywhere, to be honest. We know that GBR are struggling. We've just heard of our chief umpire. They're currently on 3 points after 2 races. They're going to get deducted 2 points for contact in the previous start. So a really tough day for the Brits as they go down to 1 point.
That's very tough for Paul Goodison. Ben Ainsley handed this team over to him in 1st place. And how's he going to hand it back? He's really under pressure.
This is interesting. Everybody's at the bottom of the line now. They've seen what Australia have been doing to launch off the line, and it is an absolute traffic jam down there as every single boat is trying to fight for that one spot that is going to launch them perfectly. This is going to be much harder for Australia to execute. Denmark are rumbling nicely here. They've got the most speed, 28 seconds to go. Japan are the controlling boats. They're holding up the boats inside them. Japan might have just opened the door for the French and the Kiwis to come off the bottom. Spanish still looking at the top. That's where they were in race 2. Can they do a better job this time?
A good old-fashioned SIG alert on the 405 in the USA as we come up like 5 seconds to go. And here's where it gets chaotic. Who's going to time it right?
Oh, man. God, man, if Phil Robertson gets away with that, it will be something else. Apology for some industrial language there. Wowee, what a run into the top of the line there from Phil Robertson and the Spanish. They got it wrong in the start of race 2. They nailed it in the start of race 3. That was a proper cheeky maneuver.
This is the umpires. This is the umpires. Spain, you have been black flagged from the race.
Black flags out of the race!
Phil Robertson.
So that
Phil
means
Robertson goes from being Houdini to black flag.
Oh man, listen to this. Phil Robertson's not happy. He's been kicked out of this race. Send your boat back to the dock.
No one could get to us, Craig.
Oh my goodness.
he's not happy about that black flag. That means he is disqualified. The umpires thought that was such a bad foul. They had the option.
This is the season 2 leader, just been chucked out the race.
Yeah, that is huge for the context of SailGP for the season.
Right, I need to calm down. Let's get back on the 7 boats that are still racing. What are you saying, Todd?
I just heard someone say, well, that was lucky, and I wonder if it's coming off the American boat because they're currently sitting 3rd place overall. Spain was 1 point behind them. So let's look at this one more time. Do you agree with the call?
I don't know, let me watch it. Let me watch it. There's lots of shouting. So we're looking at the Danish and the Spanish. Could they have got to him? Oh, and then the Americans. Oh, I think it's probably the foul on the Americans is what I'm seeing there. We're on board with the Americans here. Would they have cut him in half if they kept going straight? Yes.
Absolutely.
In my opinion, they'd have sunk him, Matt. You're the rules expert.
You saw Jimmy's wheel there. He had to turn down the Spanish with a keep clear boat, and Jimmy had to avoid. But look at the Brits here. Look at the local team, the home favourites.
Paul Goodison taking over for Ben Ainsley, who is on baby duty. We congratulate him and his family for the birth of their son Fox. He'll be back for the Denmark race, and this is the result that Goodison was hoping for when Ben Ainsley stepped off the boat.
Yeah, they need to win this race. Let's be honest. Let's not push anything else around it. They've had 2 bad races and deducted 2 points. They need 8 points from this race.
We talked about the pressure in London. He seems to be doing just fine under the pressure. But again, it was all about the start, wasn't it? Really key. They've got a good start. They've learned from the previous 2 where they've struggled. And they're in this race. And the Australians, look, going around the mark now, are struggling. So a really, really chaotic start. And it's sort of throwing everything upside down.
What a race. Race number 3, the black flag shown to Spain as the rest of the fleet sails on. The biggest surprise here, guys, the Americans now in front, overtaking Great Britain and Australia. Have they backed off? Have they let the foot off the gas pedal just a little bit, do you think?
No, I don't think so whatsoever. What we're seeing in race 3 is a full flip of race 2 with GBR and USA at the bottom of race 2. And here they are leading. This is a really tough spot on the boat. Let's listen to the comms, Paul Goodison.
Copy, we're going for 1 and in right the stem. Pressure looking better than it. Feels a little right shifted as well here.
There you go. So he's talking about the wind. He's talking about what angle the wind is hitting his boat. So Ian Jensen there is saying we are not attack and cross at the moment. That means when they tack onto port, they lose all their rights within the racing rules of sailing. And Jimmy Spithill could cut him in half, just like he could have done to Phil Robertson. So even though the Americans are in 2nd place on our picture, they're actually in the controlling position.
They have the advantage, no question about it. The Americans who finished in 2nd place in race number 1 dropped back to 5th place in race 2.
There we go. So Paul Goodison saying we've got to match. So that means the British boat has got to wait until the Americans tack. So we're going to see a silo tack. Who can do the best foiling manoeuvre? And in the background, the French are hanging in there. The French might have something to say about this. Can the Brits stay on the foil? Yes, they do. That's a lovely high-pressure tack. The French are coming in from right of picture. The French are going to have a big say in what happens here. They're both going to have to dip the French, but the Americans are are slow. This is going to be a penalty. Oh my goodness, you can't do that, Jimmy Spithill. And they can do the same to the Brits.
I don't know. Did the French have to avoid it or not? That's going to be a really close and tight one for the umpires.
And that was the question I had, guys. Who had the right of way? Was it the French the whole way?
The French had the right of way on both of those boats. The question is, did they have to change course to avoid those two boats? The umpires would be taking a close look
Matt,
at
would
that.
you have protested if you were Billy Besson?
Oh, you always protest. Even if you think maybe, well, you put it in the hands of the umpires. There's no harm in pressing the button. It'd be interesting to see what they say. They certainly would have pressed their button there.
Wow. If I was driving one of these boats, I'd be protesting everything. I'd be way too trigger happy.
Great job by the US though. If they do get away with this, they did a great job earlier on in driving down to stop the British from being able to attack. They knew what they were doing there. They would have been talking about it just as the Brits were talking about it just ahead of them.
That seemed like a water case of playing chicken, and Jimmy Spithill did not blink.
Well, they had to go for it. In that situation, you've got to go. Actually, if the duck they would have had to have done might have meant they wouldn't even laid the mark, and it could have been worse than taking the penalty, so they went for it.
Yours?
The first three boats jibing. Just quietly, the French are having a very good day. They're second overall after 2 races. They're sailing clean.
Get the boat over itself, CJ.
You are looking at US SailGP, where just moments ago, Jimmy Spithill forces the issue, does not blank, does not give way to France. No penalty assessed, so the Americans maintain their lead. Great Britain in second. And we take a look at this start. This is where the black flag came out. The bottom of the screen is Spain. And Freddie, they had looked like they had it on time and distance perfectly timed. And then all kinds of chaos.
So concentrate on the stars and stripes of the USA, the blue hole. Ignore the Danish. I don't believe that's where the infringement was. It's on Jimmy Spithill and Phil Robertson here. We saw Phil Robertson get shut out by Nathan Outridge in that same position in Taranto. This time, he doesn't get away with it.
Great starts by the Brits and the Americans too. It's all about being fast with about 5 seconds to go, and they did a really good job.
And shortly thereafter, the black flag is shown to Spain. They protested verbally. The word comes down, Spain off the course. So what was an 8-boat fleet is now 7. The third and final race of the day. Everyone racing for valuable points. Remember, 3 more races tomorrow. But to get into that last race, you have to be in the top 3.
Go a little early if you got it.
Paul Goodison needs to convert this position, having had a very poor first 2 races. Him and the boys really need to convert this 1 or number 2 to jump them back into tomorrow's all-important Sunday racing.
And so does the USA. We know there's a little extra pressure on them because their crew has not changed. They have one of those 3 teams. So they need to have a good event here. They had a great first race, a slightly dodgy second one, but they're making amends for this one and looking really strong, which they need to do. As do the French and the Danish also not changing crews for this third event here.
Well, Matt, currently if the USA lead this race and Australia finish in 7th, the Americans would actually be leading overnight. So pretty good day, all in all.
Really good day. And the bounce back that we expected to see from the bad luck those guys have had.
A moment of pause there just moments ago where Jimmy Spithill asking Ron Kirby what if they hit something. He said just a little bit of seaweed, no underwater objects, no rocks, nothing. They're good to go. So the Americans maintain that lead 78 meters ahead of Great Britain, who've had struggles in the first 2 races. And there's France staying consistent, guys, another 3rd.
400 meters to go until the last windward mark. And the platforms are absolutely locked in. When I'm talking about the platforms, I'm talking about the catamaran holes. They are nosed down perfectly by 3 degrees. That's a fast mode. And they are not wobbling from one side to the other. And that's on the wing trimmer. So the wing trimmer and the pilots on board these 2 boats are flying them beautifully. It's not all about the driver. It's about everybody on these boats. And this is a big day for the pilots.
So the Americans the first to make that maneuver beautifully. They keep both holes out of the water. This is leg 5 of 7. So they'll head back down the course and then a short blast to the finish.
Oh, bad tack on the British boat behind him. There was a pretty key tack by the American team actually, because they did have to get that tack in and cross over the Brits, which didn't happen for the Brits in the last race. But then we saw the British do a bad tack behind him, which will just help the Americans extend this lead. You can see that gap has just grown a little bit.
So coming into this gate number 5, Jimmy Spithill, USA SailGP, looking to be in control. Ron Kirby calmly communicating with his driver.
You're right, Jimmy.
That's interesting, that noise. You're right, Jimmy. That's Ron Kirby, the flight controller, asking Jimmy whether he's happy with where he's put the boat. The British boat coming in for their bearaway. This is where the acceleration zone is. You can hear the whistle get more high-pitched.
Oh boy, another tight crossing. France has to give way, and the Kiwis going to be forcing France to dip. We'll see what that costs them in time and distance as the Kiwis and Arnaud Saraphagas moving up to third place, France dropping back to fourth.
And the Kiwis probably the most affected by the Tokyo Olympic Games.
Yeah, New Zealand losing Pete Burley, Blair Tuke, Josh Jr., Andy Maloney, all stepping off the boat. But they will be back for Denmark.
Is the lead boat. The United States of America. The grinders are low in the cockpit. That's a good indication that they're pretty chilled out. They're grinding on their knees. Why would they be doing that? It's about an aero game now in sailing. It's not about a hydro game, it's about an aero game. Low windage, much like a cyclist in the Tour de France.
Heard that moments ago. Jimmy Spithill not quite sure if they had another lap to go. Kind of like Tom Brady, not know if it was fourth down or not, but he told him, yeah, Jimmy, just one more and then we're in. And when you're that calm, guys, and when things are going that well, it's a joy.
I think that's a good example of him being in the zone, you know, just sail the boat fast, leave everything else up to the boys in front of you.
That's right, it's all about where his focus is, and that's what a good crew does. That's the beauty of sailing the same guys over and over again, isn't it, Freddie? Is that you get to know what each other's roles are on the boat. He knows the other guys are looking at what the course is. He can just worry about where he's putting the boat, keeping the boat ripping fast in these beautiful foiling conditions, and on these very, very technical and hard to sail boats, the hardest race boats to sail in the world. These guys are the best, and it helps when you trust the guys around you.
So maybe an opportunity lost for Great Britain, guys. They had two poor races to start things off. They had the lead, but now they are sitting in second place. But no one can match the speed of Jimmy Spithill and USA SailGP. They are certainly the class of the fleet in this third and final race. Big surprise for me, Australia, who had been dominating the first two races, 2 wins in a row, sitting now in seventh.
Yeah, as a neutral sitting here as a pundit, this is a great result for the overall series here at Plymouth. This is going to close it right up.
Even the British fans can appreciate the Yankees and what they're doing here in Plymouth as the win goes to the USA squad.
You got that yellow and black? Yeah, blue. You're just going to be out of the course. About that first
so the Americans with the win in race number 3. Great Britain with a great performance on home waters will grab second place in the all-important 7 points that go with it. That's a nice bounce back, isn't it?
That is a nice bounce back, but they needed it. To be honest, if they finished in the bottom half of the fleet in race 3, it would have been a long shot to come back and get the podium race. They went from 6th to 1st in Bermuda. Hey, solid. Lee McMillan.
Yeah,
really
maybe
nice
the most
day.
consistent boat is France, 3, 3, and 3. So 3 podium finishes. A great job by Billy Masson and his squad getting it together, being consistent. Here comes New Zealand and their skipper Arnaud Saraphagas just holding off Nathan Outteridge, who in the last 2 days of practice looked almost unbeatable. They'll take 5th. The Danes will finish in 6th with Nikolai Sehested.
It's something we've seen in SailGP so far this season. Whenever Nathan Outteridge and the Japanese are deep, they've sailed through the fleet up to the front. Today, when they're at the back, they haven't been able to do that.
Well, I think that comes down to the course we've got today. It's a very, very even course if you don't get a good start. And here are the Australians coming up in last place. They were having such a good day until that point. Just didn't get the start right. They did a slightly different start, which is probably part of it. They weren't going fast at that sort of 4 seconds to go before the start, and got bogged down in that pack and couldn't even pick off one spot. So tough last race for them.
The third and final race of the day goes the way of Jimmy Spithill and USA SailGP. After all their problems hitting an object in Taranto, Italy, colliding with Japan at the first event in Bermuda and Hale, they turned it all around. It seemed like these 3 races just seemed almost perfect. Now, they weren't spot on in race 2, of course, finishing in 5th, but a second in race 1 and a top finish in race number 3 is just money as they prep for Sunday. So all 8 boats are getting into position into the start area. This is the key as we come up on 2 minutes to go, Freddie. We saw this play out yesterday in all 3 races. If you don't stick that start, you are almost guaranteed not to be in the top 3.
100%. And in the lighter airs, that's accentuated. You've got to get off the start line well. We saw it in race 1 and 2 with the Australians. It's pretty simple, isn't it, Matt? If you're the fastest boat when the gun goes, the closest to the line, you launch onto that first ridge.
It is simple when you say it like that, but of course with starting it never is simple. The boats that were doing well were the boats that were just behind the front pack and had a gap to accelerate into. But of course there's 7 other boats on the start line that are closing those gaps up for you, so it's more simple than it sounds.
Coming up on 90 seconds to go, Freddie. That was a great shot. Seeing the flag, seeing the wind come in. It doesn't look like it's building.
It's building a little. There's still a lot of chat around the right-hand side on board with the Japanese here. Now these guys are involved in race 4, what I call the elimination race. If these guys do not win this race, I do not think they'll be featuring in the final shootout, race 6, the 3-boat race at the end of the day. If you're in the bottom half overall now, you have to be looking to win this race to stay alive.
8 points to the winner. Remember, Japan won the last event in Italy at Taranto, so they're looking for a big bounce back here in Great Britain.
30 to kill. Standing by attack. My wing.
So coming up on 50 seconds to go, you cannot cross that line until the clock goes 0. This is where the big scramble begins.
A lot of communication on the boat, talking about their final manoeuvres in. The French here forcing the British to tack. The British got a penalty for that yesterday. Billy Besson driving his boat through the fleet. Very interestingly, not many boats are at the top of the line here. Not many boats are playing the Phil Robertson card. And Phil Robertson there has completely changed his tactics from yesterday. He's now involved at the dogfight at the bottom of the line. There are no boats looking to push in here. USA are closest to the line. They're going to have to do a good trigger pull. But look at New Zealand. They are rumbling beautifully with 10 seconds to go.
So this is the calm before the chaos. Race number 4 set to go underway. Is everyone hit it right? Look at New Zealand. Did they get it? Yes, the line goes 0 and New Zealand up and foiling.
What an amazing start by interim helm Sarafagis on New Zealand. This is his last day as interim helm here for the Kiwi crew, and he's looking to leave his mark on SailGP.
Wow, did you see that start from the Japanese though too? Oh, here we go, umpire call.
No umpire call. Penalty on USA. That's the regatta leader. Must have been a boat-on-boat incident, I believe.
But the Japanese really squeaked it through a small gap there. They saw that gap that we talked about. They were behind everyone else and they had speed all the way through it and punched out into 2nd place.
Okay, coming up at touch now, 150.
So at mark number 1, it's New Zealand, Japan, Spain, Great Britain, and Denmark. The first 5 through. The USA coming through in 6th, just ahead of France, guys. You called it, Freddie. This is moving day. If you were at the bottom yesterday, you need to be at the top of this race, and that's exactly where New Zealand, Japan, and Great Britain find themselves.
Exactly, Todd, and the breeze is shifted round to the left here. That's why all the boats have stayed on this jibe. That means the conversation, the tactical conversation on board the boats is about doing one manoeuvre and into the first leeward gate. The Danish are the first boats to jibe, and here's our lead boat. Look how quickly they got across the boat. They're looking to stay on the foils here. If they drop out of the sky and the hulls touch the water, they could lose the lead. Let's see if they pull it off.
Keep building. Coming. We might do one more jibe for the mark.
So there we go. There's Sarafagis saying we might do one more jibe before the bottom gate. They have the tactical game open to them here. They've got to go in between those 2 black marks top of the picture. They can either turn left or right, and it sounds like they've just called for a left turn.
See those blue lines coming in, indicating wind direction. Right now, it's holding just about 19.5 kilometers an hour with Japan just off the left-hand side of New Zealand. So this will be tricky at gate number 2.
1, going forward. Coming up in 10. Go 1, on the lock. Here we go, slow turn.
Slow turn, that's the voice of Nathan Outridge, the driver of the Japanese boat. And we've got a split around the first leeward gate, Todd.
So this will be huge. Where the top part of the screen is where more of the pressure seems to be. And Arno Sarafagis filling in for Peter Burling as the helmsman has a nice run going here, but so does Nathan Outridge for Japan at the bottom.
Phil Robertson in the Spanish round in 3rd. Slight gap back to the British in 4th. The British have got to move up from 4th if they're going to stay alive for the rest of the day. We know from all their communication on board the boat before the start, the boats wanted to get out to the right-hand side of the boat. That is the way that New Zealand and Spain are going.
Paul Goodison, the driver for Great Britain, filling in for Ben Ainsley, who stepped off the boat for family matters for the last 2 races. He'll be back in Denmark. The USA go through in 5th.
The Danish going round on rock wall. Even though they did a right turn at the bottom, they are also trying to get out to the Drake's Island side of the race course. I think there might be a little bit more wind over there. More wind equals more boat speed, but not if you don't nail your maneuvers and fall off the foil.
So Freddie, here's the big question. If everyone knows that the more pressure is at the top of the course up towards Drake Island, why is Japan and some of the other boats going to the other side?
They're just trying to open up the race course, sail in a different patch of pressure, and it looks to me like the Japanese have paid dividends from splitting away from New Zealand, and we have a lead change.
So Japan goes into first place, New Zealand now slides back to second, Spain in third, and Great Britain falling off back into fourth. Moments ago, they were in second.
This is really the nature of the course we've got out here on the Plymouth Sound today too. It's a very wide course. So although the breeze is very even across the course from what we can see, there's opportunities for teams to get wide, big splits on other teams, as we see now. Japanese going out all the way out to the other side. They'll get a long way from the New Zealand team. So there's a good chance they will be sailing with different conditions.
Setting up. Big wing, my wing. Going forward.
Final attack on the first upwind for the Japanese. You can see them all swapping roles going into that tack. The helmsman role, the driving role changed, the wing sheet role changed. They pop straight up onto the foil out of that one, over the critical 30 kilometres an hour.
Japan out in front, New Zealand, as we come up on leg 3, moving over to leg 4.
This is interesting. The Japanese are sailing a further distance here to get round through the windward gate. New Zealand are going to the right-hand mark as you look upwind, and it feels to me like they might launch slightly better onto the downwind.
It's all about points here. 8 points for the winner. You're trying to build enough points for these next 2 races today to get in the final race of the day where only the top 3 boats will compete.
And very significantly, guys, looking at the scoreboard, you see the top 4 boats right now on the race course are the bottom 4 boats on the scoreboard, which is very significant for the survival of those 4 teams in trying to get into those coveted top 3 places and get into the final here in Plymouth. So let's see how that works out over this race. It is critical for these teams that are in the lead.
And if you're the Americans, Freddie, I got to think you got a little bit of room of air because you're sitting on top with the 19 points, but you don't want to give too many points away in this 4th race.
The boats that are kind of in the drop zone at the moment in that 3rd place overall are France and Australia, and they are currently 7th, or just moved to 6th and 8th, so a bit of pressure building on those guys.
Amazing what one day does, as Australia came out yesterday, won the first 2 races, and then the Americans went on a bit of a tear to hold on to that first day lead of 19 points, just ahead of Australia on 18, and France in 3rd on 18 as well.
On board with the French here, Billy Besson. Got the Aussies just creeping into shot, coming down to the leeward gate. There's a big split here. The front 4 boats seem to have stepped away from the back 4 boats, so there's 2 battles going on. As the Japanese go around gate 4 for the last time. This is their last upwind. This is their last opportunity to read the wind. We know they made massive gains by going out to this hand side of the course on the first upwind. That's where they got the lead change. Let's see if they do the same again.
All the way to boundary again?
Talking about all the way to boundary, that was Nathan Outridge going, yes, we are going to go all the way this way as the British close right up on New Zealand here. What will the British do? Oh, they're asking for room. I don't think they've got it. Matt, you're the rules expert.
No, they didn't have room, so that yellow circle there, if they weren't inside over that, when they got to that yellow circle, there was no room for them.
So that was the voice of Paul Goodison saying, room, room, you have to let us around. And Sarah Faggis and the New Zealanders said, no way, Paul. That is not your mark to take. We own this one, and that's why we see the New Zealand team stay ahead of the British.
2nd and 3rd, the battle. New Zealand and Great Britain. Spain, meanwhile, comes into view as they pass by the Americans, who are still heading upwind. The Americans currently sitting in 5th, but Japan doing a fantastic job way off on the horizon. Spain still in this battle, but they took a big hit yesterday with that black flag not getting any points coming in today with just 10 points overall.
Really significantly, look at that picture there, sorry, we just missed it, but Australia and France are sitting in 7th and 8th right now. Those 2 guys that occupy those top 3 spots, they've got to hang on to that. They do not want this. This will be nervy moments for them. And also we know with Tom Slingsby, he's a confidence guy. He doesn't like being at the back of the fleet, and this will not be good for him going into that next race, trying to get into the final in the 3rd race.
Got a reasonable gap here.
Nathan Outridge out in front. You hear him chatting. There you see the Brits maneuvering right in front of Spain, sending them the dirty air. Here comes another crossing. Remember, moments ago we saw the last gate, New Zealand not giving way. They didn't have to. They had the right of way. This time Great Britain will dip behind them.
That's, again, the voice of Paul Goodison saying, this is good, guys. We're going to get this split from the Kiwis at the top. When he's saying split, it means they're going to be sailing on the opposite side of the course as they come into their final downwind. When you're on the opposite side of the course, it means you're sailing in different wind strengths and gives the boat behind opportunities to overtake as we jump back on board with the Japanese.
There you see Olympic gold medalist Nathan Outteridge on the right-hand side with his hand on the wheel. Chris Draper just to his right.
Final upwind mark here, the Japanese. This is what we're used to seeing from the Japanese. This is what they did in Taranto. They got out in front and stayed in front. They had a terrible day by their standards yesterday. Nice little return to form, Tom. Francesco Bruni, the flight controller on board the Japanese boat, doing a really nice job of controlling the dagger board, the foil, the thing on board the boat that lifts the boat out of the water, and that's the hardest moment in the race for the flight controllers at the windward marks.
And look at this, New Zealand seemingly opening up a bigger lead on Great Britain, and they're going to make this quick. Quick turn right around the nearest gate, and they're heading now downwind.
Very interestingly, all the chat in the pre-start was about getting to the right-hand side of the course over to Drake's Island. Every boat that's gone to the left-hand side of the course in race number 4, the elimination race, has gained. The British come round in 3rd place.
Here we go.
I feel like this is a good result for the British, having had 2 awful races yesterday in race 1 and 2. They recovered with a 2nd in the final race. They might just need to jump one more spot to try and keep their hopes alive in their home event.
And look at the USA moving up into 4th place ahead of Spain. That's significant because that's another point that has given into the USA. If they can finish that spot, almost guaranteeing a spot in the final.
USA versus Spain, hey? There was a bit of chat about that overnight. I've never seen sailing social media light up like it did around that penalty decision. Anyway, that's yesterday, but I'm sure it's going to live long in the memory of Phil Robertson.
Phil Robertson issued the black flag yesterday in race number 3 as he infringed on the space of Jimmy Spithill, was quick to let his feelings be known.
If it finishes where it stands here, with the Japanese having a nice, confident race, going wire to wire, and Australia and France in 7 and 8, this is going to really concertina the overall leaderboard. This is exactly the tonic the Japanese need for a bad day yesterday.
Let's, when we finish, make our way up there quite quickly.
That's game face, isn't
Yeah,
it? He's
yeah,
not
really
even bothered about this race win. He's all about the next race already. That's the voice of Nathan Outteridge.
So it's Japan SailGP bouncing back from yesterday. They currently sit in 7th place, one off the bottom with just 9 points, but they will pick up 8 points in a big win in race number 4.
Lifeline for the Japanese, no doubt. A big lifeline for the Japanese. They are alive in Plymouth.
So now the battle on for the points that are still available. With Japan winning that race, New Zealand, Great Britain, the USA, and Spain desperately needs a top finish, even if they can get ahead of the Americans or the Brits.
Great results from the Kiwis here. They've been suffering a little bit from mid-table obscurity in the season so far, and at this regatta. A 2nd place is a nice little stamp by these guys, and it gives them the opportunity to press with Australia and France doing badly to try and make the 3rd spot. This race 5 is going to be all on.
So as things stand, gentlemen, if the Japanese win this race and New Zealand come in where they are number 2, and France being all the way back down in 8th, that would put Japan within 2 points of the French and New Zealand within 1 point of the French, with that final race to come before we cut off the top 3. So this is really significant right now.
And look at this, Jimmy Spithill, USA SailGP, they are up and foiling, looking very good. They're going to pick up a point ahead of Phil Robertson, so a little salt in the wound for the Spanish boat there, courtesy of Mr. Spithill.
Exactly what we're talking about, you know? Yeah,
I know what they're talking about there. They're talking about their rudder. As soon as they cross the line, they look back and started looking at their rudder. They're not happy with that rudder. I'd expect to see a little bit going on in between races on board the American boat.
3 boats still on the water racing here in race number 4. 2 races still to go, but you've got to be in the top 3 to be in that final race as we get a good look at Denmark SailGP presented by Rockwell. Nikolai Sehested, guys, he needs to find that consistency. We've seen him at the top of the board, we've seen him at the bottom. He's got to find a more consistent run.
He's one of the only unchanged crews here in Plymouth. They've got to be looking to grab some points here before everybody returns to the Olympics. High pressure on the Danes.
And there is Australia Slingsby. This is a far cry from the first 2 races yesterday where they finished first and first. Back-to-back first place finishes. And for Billy Basson in France, oh, the frustration on board has got to be just amazing.
It's interesting for me. I thought before today's racing, I thought, well, if Australia and France have a bad first race, it's going to open it right up. Look at this. It's last and second to last. It is open race 5 right up.
Yeah, but we're here. You hear the
Let's listen on board with Billy Besson.
You protest?
I heard
but not until we went through the mark.
I heard Lee McMillan say that he hit protest there, so there might have been a slight incident against the Australians, and that's the voice of Tom Slingsby saying our rudders are washing out so easy. So he's also got a rudder problem. Not only do the rudders turn left and right, but they help you fly. And if they're washing out, that means you're going to fly much worse.
So there it is. It is 1 race complete here on Championship Sunday. Japan goes out and gets all 8 points. New Zealand second, Great Britain in third. The USA coming back to finish in 4th place. But those are some valuable 5 points the Americans will add that they're already leading 19 points after yesterday's performance. 80 seconds to go. You like to see that, Freddie. A little bit of breeze coming across those boats. The flags fluttering in the wind, and that's good news for the SailGP, the world's greatest sailors, as they get ready for race number 5. 1:15 to go before the start of race number 5. This will be the race to determine who the top 3 boats will be to race off in the final race of the day. The Americans look good. They've got great position right now, but there's still a lot of points out there. 8 points to the winner of the race.
And it looks a little bit softer on the race course. Told we're on board with the Australians here. It looks a little bit softer on the race course. It looked quite patchy with 53 seconds to go to the start. Again, nobody's pushing the top of the line. Everybody's learnt their lessons there. 46 seconds to go on board with the Australians. We know that they are one of the boats under threat for not making the top 3. The boats are very close to the line. I wonder if they're aware of the points. I'm sure they are. The abacuses will be clicking away in the coach boats. The Americans are very close indeed to the start line, as are the Danes. The Japanese have got good speed, but Australia's blocking them coming in with 23 seconds to go. The British are lining up at the bottom. Everybody's being fairly cautious here, which means I'd expect fairly early trigger pulls. Japanese are still trying to find that spot. How's he going to get through there? So close, and he does. 8 seconds to go.
So with 5 seconds at the line, wait for the line to go white, and it does. So everyone's clear. Japan, did they do it right? No penalty, going the way of the Japanese.
This is the umpires. Penalty Japan, relative Australia.
That's an early start penalty for the Japanese. That means when the gun went, they are over the line. And I tell you what, guys, Japanese have got to get behind Australia. I tell you what, guys, it is lighter. We called it before the start, and these boats are struggling to foil, apart from France and Great Britain, who have popped and are leading away. This is massive news for France. They are one of the boats defending that top 3 spot.
Denmark and New Zealand had to bear away at the start, as these do not get a penalty. Did it cost them massively? Yes, it did. The U.S. in 3rd place, but they've got to be happy with that. They stayed away from trouble, avoided a penalty, and now they just need to sail a clean race.
The Union Jacks will be waving on the shoreline. I've heard that there's about 8,000 to 10,000 people on the shoreline today, all supporting the British team. Will they get rewarded in race 5 for their loyal support?
And the really significant thing here, guys, is if it finishes just as we see now. It's a long way to go, obviously, but it's very comfortable for the French and the American team. That would put them in the final. So keep your eyes on Japan and Australia. There isn't too many points between those guys. There's only 3 points between them. Japan has to get behind them right now, but look for splits, look for some match racing between those 2 teams. The Australians will know all about that.
And how great would this be for the home fans here in Plymouth to see Great Britain
SailGP
come away with a victory?
Finally, About 45 to a minute after the start, the Japanese have cleared their penalty on Australia, as you can see, puts them back in 6th place. That's not what they want to back up their race win with. Japan have got to go and try and get in the front 2 to get in the final 3 shootout. On board with Phil Robertson as he jibes. It is much lighter here. I believe the flight controllers are really struggling to keep the boats in the air. Phil Robertson currently in 4th place, settling down. He has also got a lot to do, the overall season leader, to get into the final in Plymouth.
Paul Goodison, Olympic gold medalist, taking over for Ben Ainsley. For this race, Ben will be back for Denmark.
So the British are doing the same as the Japanese did in race 1 here, Todd. Looks to me like they're going to chuck a jibe in and come over to the left-hand side of the course. That's where the Japanese made all the gains to go from 3rd to 1st in the first race. And the Brits are copying that manoeuvre as they round up. Really nice round up by the British. Their lovely coordination between the 3 boys at the back of the boat, with the grinders working hard to trim that wheel sheet on. Massive news for the French. This is them defending their 3rd place.
Yesterday, the French were the most consistent, 3, 3, and 3 in all 3 races, finishing on the podium in top 3. But they need some points here to make sure they're not overtaken by the Spanish and or the Japanese.
That was the voice of Lee McMillan saying left shift on the Brits, which in layman's terms means the left-hand side of the course is the right way to go.
Put over at Sail, CJ.
Let's go early. Let's take a bit of height here before attack.
Spanish round in 4th place.
Brits are up here.
Bounced back yesterday from his red card. He got a 4th in the first race, 4th today. It's not enough.
And this is Australia, Japan just behind them. Tom Slingsby wondering where Nathan Outridge is.
So that's a bit of a battle for 3rd place, but the Japanese, not only have they got to get past Australia, they've got to sail past most of the fleet. And I tell you what, they're not going to be doing it by sailing at 23 kilometers an hour off the foil.
I would have guessed they go all the
Significantly
way.
there, you see the Australians tack straight away. They saw the Japanese going over towards that right-hand side of the race course. They've tacked over from the bottom gate with that JK maneuver. Look at the velocity from the 2 different boats on the split sides of course here coming from the Oracle Cloud. You can see there's 16 knots over where the British are on the right-hand side, and less than 15. So there is breeze gradients, but I don't think the Australians are going to let that Japanese team get a single split for the rest of this race.
Use right. Let's build a little.
So comms off both boats there. Billy Besson saying they have a huge right, and Ian Jensen, the throttle man, the wing controller on board the British boat, saying build our speed before this tack. And this is a crucial tack actually. It is softer on the race course. We're under 15 kilometers an hour. Can they stick the tack? If they do, they really will put the pressure on the British. The British tack just in front of them. The British definitely touch down. I think the French do too, so it's all square. Pressure from the French onto the British.
Yeah, I got it.
That's some hydrofoiling right there. Paul Goodison, as we said, taking over for Ben Ainsley for the last 2 races and coming back in Denmark. Goodison would love to finish off with a win here in race number 5.
Couldn't go on the mark, no.
Neil Hunter and Richard Mason winding their handles at the front of the boat. Neil Hunter in particular, when he gets going on those handles, can produce 2,000 watts with his arms. But I tell you, in 15 knots of wind, he might not need to. But this is a big moment for the grinders. The wing sheet eases. The wing is now at maximum power, and you can see them spinning their arms round and round. Bring that wing back on, power up, and that takes them to 48 kilometers an hour versus the French at 32. A little extension down the race ladder for the British.
Wow, you can see how the fleet is all spread out. So Great Britain has the lead, France in 2nd, Spain 3rd, the USA holding steady in 4th place right now. Not in so much of a hurry to garner points because they are sitting 1st overall.
Significantly, gentlemen, as things stand at the moment, the Japanese are struggling. Australia would take 3rd place with 24 points and Japan would only have 19. However, GBR, currently winning this race, would be on 22 points. So if the Australians slip back 2 places, that would put the British into the final on home waters. So the Australians are match racing the Japanese, but they do have to be a little bit careful. They cannot afford to lose 2 more places.
And it is close in that mid-fleet. That is very, very possible from what I can see here. As the Spanish go round in 3rd place, It's getting much lighter. They are falling off the foil more and more and more.
Okay, nice. Boundary jibe here, okay?
That could be a bit of a lifeline for the Australians. We're just talking about them being under pressure, and they've just sailed underneath the Americans, hopped on the foil underneath the Americans, turned onto the downwind. Tom Slingsby talking about trying to build the boat speed, and they've jumped up into 4th place.
So people watching at home, Freddie, why wasn't that a penalty on the Australians on the Americans?
I don't believe there was any contact. The Australians at that moment were just going too fast. They didn't need to engage with the Americans, and they were just happy to fly right by.
Let's go right turn, huh? Right turn. Okay, fine.
Okay, that's the voice of Lee Macmillan on board the French, acting as the French tactician. He's talking about going the right turn into the bottom. And we see them jibe to do that. They are playing a simple game. If they were going for a race win, they might have tried to split away from the British, but we know they are super happy with 2nd place. They finished 3rd in Bermuda. They didn't have a blinder in Italy, but could this be the 2nd time they've made the final race out of 3 events? Not many people would have called that at the beginning of SailGP Season 2.
Yeah, no question about that. Great Britain would be a shock if they made it into the final after yesterday's performance, but that would be huge for the fans here in Plymouth to get the home team into that final event. Only the top 3 moving on. Great Britain right now leads it. France in 2nd. There's Spain in 3rd. USA now dropping back to 6th place. But remember, they're 1st place overall, so points not as much as a premium for them.
And Great Britain and France have gone. By looking at that overhead, you can see the distance between France and Spain is massive. So I do not expect to see France moving back in this fleet. That will lock in their place in the final 3 shootout in race 6.
Nikolai Seilstedt, the helmsman for Denmark. They could really be spoilers if they could move ahead of Spain and even possibly get into a mix with France, taking valuable points away.
And it's Denmark that are going to be the first boat that go to the opposite gate. You heard the conversation between Tom Johnson and Nicholas Seilstedt. They were looking around, and they're pretty happy to go to the right-hand side of the course. We haven't really seen that working so far, halfway through race 2.
Have a look in the bottom left-hand corner there. That is the as it stands points if this race finishes as it is, with only 3 more legs to go. It'll be those top 3 boats as they stand into the final.
That's as it stands right now.
As it stands right now, if the Australians don't lose 3 places, that is the key right now. The Brits will only overtake them if the Australians drop back those 3 places.
So what's your mindset if you're Tom Slingsby, Matt? Are you defending the boats behind you, or are you trying to pick off the Spanish and try and get another little buffer to the boats behind you?
I think it all depends on how close those boats are. I think you still have to sail fairly conservatively. You don't want to start dropping back. They're in a happy place right now. They're 5th on the race course. It can get a little dangerous if you get sucked back into the pack. They don't need to take any places. They've got a buffer. So really just keep it very simple. Just keep it smooth, and they should be fine to get into this final with the American team and the French.
So Great Britain having their best showing of this event here at the Great Britain Sail Grand Prix. They save it for race number 5 as they get set to make the turn at gate number 5.
1, here we go.
The speed in kilometres an hour shoot up there as they go onto the bearaway, onto the final downwind. As things stand, unfortunately for British,
This is the umpires. Penalty Spain versus Australia.
We're hearing there.
Penalty clear.
That means Australia are going to step 1 step up, and they do. As things stand, this is a great win for Great Britain, but they need to see Australia drop to the back of the fleet.
The Americans, but we'll be beyond them, no problem.
It's an easy one in the end.
So they're already talking about the finish here. As Great Britain saying it's an easy one and in as the rest of the fleet tries to reel them in. For some of the teams, as you pointed out, Freddie, they're defensive. They know their position. They've obviously been in touch with someone with a calculator saying, just hold on, do not give up any more positions.
That's the voice of Paul Goodison, the interim helmsman, standing in for Ben Ainsley. We know in these last 2 events, Ben Ainsley is going to be back at our next event in Aarhus in Denmark. And this is a nice way for Paul Goodison to sign out of SailGP. He's going to leave a little mark here. And the Brits do sail well on the Sundays. We know that. They bounce back on the Sunday in Bermuda to go from 6th to 1st. not quite enough this time.
Big battle right now with Australia trying to maintain that 5th position as they are coming up close on 3rd place in Denmark. Nikolai Sehested and Denmark SailGP presented by Rockwell. And look at this crossing as Phil Robertson once again into the mix, and he's going to drop down off at foils and pretty much just hits the E-brake right in front of the Australians.
And the Australians, again, we saw it on the last windward mark. They foiled right underneath the USA and did the slingshot onto the final downwind. They've done the same maneuver against the Spanish. They didn't look to engage the Spanish. They were just using their speed in the light airs to get onto the final sprint.
Here comes the USA, currently sitting in 6th place. Japan and New Zealand bringing up the rear. That's bad news for Japan SailGP fans and Nathan Outridge. They needed a much better performance in 7th and the points that go with it.
Yeah, rudder compensator's not quite tuned for these elevators, though.
Well, there's some technical chat coming off Luke Parkinson. He's coming into his final race. Ian Jensen says that's more like it. Let's listen in.
And much to the delight of the fans here in Plymouth, Great Britain SailGP gets the win in race 5.
Everything happens nicely behind us.
There, Ian Jensen, the wing trimmer, saying if everything happens nicely behind us, we stand a chance. Paul Goodison said, really nice day today. They needed a bounce back, but they need to see Australia step down the leaderboard if they're going to make the final 3.
This is the umpires. Penalty New Zealand relative Japan. Penalty New Zealand relative Japan.
So the Kiwis will have to drop behind
New Zealand
Japan.
will look for you to get behind Japan. Get behind Japan.
Okay, H1.
And France finishing in 2nd place. So a good showing from Billy Besson, very consistent throughout the weekend, and it looks like they have punched their ticket into the final.
100% Todd, I can confirm that puts France in the top 3 and into the final in the last race today.
And how about this once again? Look at this, look how close it is.
That's Australia. Little overtake there on the Spanish. That was to move from 5th to 4th. Again, giving them a little buffer about dropping out of the top 3. They love not engaging at that top mark. They love keeping their speed and using it onto the downwind.
Well, disappointing for the Danes this weekend. They showed some signs of consistency, certainly in practice on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, but it's what you do on Saturday and Championship Sunday that counts. And now the Danes get ready as they will host SailGP in the next event. Nikolai Sehested, Denmark SailGP, presented by Rockwell, will have a few weeks to get things ready.
And a nice step up in performance by Sehested and his crew here. They're getting better at every event they go to, and they'll want to be hitting the straps when they get to their home event, and they're happy on board.
Top 3 finish for the Danes. Australia doing what they had to do here in race number 4. It was touch and go there at the start, but Slingsby and company getting it done in 4th.
And Slingsby said yesterday he thinks his Achilles heel is light wind sailing, so he would be very happy. He's a confident sailor. He must be confident.
Spain will come in 5th place, but I'll tell you what, that black flag yesterday took them out of the running because no points available for them as they had to sit that one out after just the first leg.
We'll round up in 10.
The Australians crossing there and confirming their place in the final, and as we see Jimmy Spithill and his American crew coming across the finish line too, that also confirms their place. So we have our top 3 for the final. We have USA, they finished with 27 points, France were just behind them with 26, and Australia on 25. Those are our 3 finalists, gentlemen. Exciting race coming up.
Nice work by Matt with a calculator, getting that map done quickly. So for those 3 boats, another race as Arno Sarafagis filling in for Pete Burley and Blair Took brings their boat in. Too many penalties for the Kiwis and just did not seem to find the rhythm here on Sunday in races 4 and 5.
Stop here. Sorry for the start. Start, mate.
Sarafagis there saying sorry for the start. They can't have got a blinder, and we know you've got to get off the line well in these light airs if you're going to stand a chance of picking up 8 points for the win.
But race number 5 goes the way of the host nation. Great Britain SailGP with Paul Goodison at the helm gets the win in front of the fans here in Plymouth. We are down to the final race of this event, the Great Britain Sail Grand Prix, coming up on 1:40 to go. Todd Harris, Freddie Carr, Matt Cornwell with you here in beautiful Plymouth. Freddie, we heard a lot of different accents on SailGP Team USA, so you don't have to be a complete American to be on board that boat.
No, every boat has one wild card on board, but all the rest are from the nation of the flag at the top of the wing. The wild card on board the American boat that we're on board with here is Paul Campbell-James, the wing trimmer, and I heard just now he said, I am going to burn this wing sheet out during this race. That means he is going to be pumping his accelerator to get that boat ripping in the light airs.
So here we go with a minute to go before the start of the final race. This is for the honors of taking home the top prize here at the Great Britain Sail Grand Prix. Remember, Bermuda was won by Great Britain, Italy was won by Japan. Can the Americans get the win here in Plymouth?
This is interesting. The French and the Americans are engaged. They've locked horns down at the bottom end of the line, and the Australians that were on board now are sailing loose and free with 37 seconds to go. That gives the Australians a little bit more room to stay on the foil, and the Australians and the French are locked together. A very different strategy of only 3 boats versus 8. We're hearing the dominant voice of Lee McMillan telling Billy Besson to keep the speed. I feel like all the boats are quite a long way away from the line with 19 seconds to go. The Australians are the fastest and the French are in the best position. The Americans might just be stuck in no man land with 10 seconds to go. The Australians are taking a big dive.
And here we go, 5 seconds to go before the line goes white. Did they hit it right? And it looks to be perfect starting for Jimmy Spithill and Team USA. Australia looked to have the momentum, but fell off at the last moment.
It's a boat speed race. It's a boat speed race right now between Australia and America. We're on board with America here. Let's see if Paul Campbell-James wears that wing sheet out right now. It doesn't look like he's too dynamic, but they've got good boat speed. They're going to be neck and neck as they hit the yellow circle. Whoever hits that circle first, marks 1. And that's the Australians. Mark 1 now looking to convert that good position onto the downwind. All about the simultaneous jibe that's coming up next.
So on the first gate, it's Australia with the lead, USA second, and France in third.
Every race we have seen so far has been won by the guy in the lead who's halfway around the course, who's still in the lead. Is that significant right now? What can the American and the French team do to get ahead of this Australian team? They love being in the lead. Oh, that looks a little bit loose though.
Oh man, he said watch the rudders and shouted no. Oh, he's got no rudders. That means the lift of the rudders, the back of the boat fell out of the sky. That could be the moment that the Americans sail past them. If the Americans stick their jibe, I think we'll have a lead change. And we do have a lead change. The Australians can go from first to third.
That could be the moment of the match as the USA now catapults himself into first place after that mistake. Unfortunate for Australia.
Wow, that was all about pressure, wasn't it? They would have been looking behind. They had the American team right on their hammer, and that forced them into a really bad maneuver.
All right, let's look at it one more time. Exactly what went wrong here for Tom Slingsby.
So as Tom turned down into the jibe, he said, I've lost my rudders, I've lost my rudders. You can see his hand twisting, the wheel shakes in his hand, and you can hear his frustration and look at the disappointment on the trimmer. Nick Hutton's face, he says, I've got no rudders. He mentioned the rudders were a little bit sticky at the end of race 1. And has he just paid for it in the final? This is the view on board the French boat looking at the same incident. Going round Mark 1. Bearing away onto the downwind, so it's all about the jibe that's coming up now as we go back to the live racing with the Americans in the lead.
We have seen this situation before though, haven't we, gentlemen? This is the same view that we had in Toronto. The Americans had a healthy lead in that race. They hit a submerged object and that cost them the lead. That will be in their minds, but they will want to make amends for that in this race, and they will be chomping at the bit to be in the lead right now.
So in gate number 2, it's America out in front. France coming in second, and Australia after that poor maneuver where they lost control have now slid back to third. This is a very precarious situation for the rest of the fleet. Just 3 boats out on the course, Freddie, so it is wide open. You give Jimmy Spithill that much canvas and that much room, it's a dangerous proposition.
Exactly, we've got 3 boats here that have all been in a podium race so far in season 2. Not one of these boats has won from that podium race. We know the USA could have gone on to win it in Toronto, got some bad luck. They are back in the lead of this final podium race here in Plymouth. This time, can they convert it? Is it another comeback by Spithill?
Australia, defending champions from last year, looking for a big win here in season 2. The Americans trying to get off the problems they had both in Bermuda and Toronto. And is this the spot? Is this where they get it done?
Well, look at this. There's a huge split. It's a very wide race course. And look at the breeze down the top left-hand corner. Oh, it's fairly even, but a second ago we saw about a knot more. Maybe because the French went through attack, but we saw about a knot more over on this left-hand side of the race course. That means they should be a bit of a gain for the French team over the Australians here.
This is really interesting now for me, Matthew. What do American Spithill do as we go on board with Spithill here? Do you cover the French or do you cover the Australians? You can only cover one side of the course. When I say cover, you're going to try and keep your... Whoa, there's a wobble. Oh my goodness, what's happening there? Let's listen on board. Pretty calm. Campbell James says speed built for the attack. And there's another rudder conversation there. That was the voice of Ron Kirby. The rudders are misbehaving today. And what we see by the French popping out behind is the Australians and the French are engaged. And the Americans are sailing by themselves in the lead.
Wow, doesn't it feel nervy out there? We're seeing all the forced errors from all these teams.
Look at the speed drop.
Yeah, big
That's
speed drop
McMillan
just coming
saying
out.
we've got a duck on the USA. That means the French have closed right up. We saw from the helicopter shot there, they are neck and neck and neck coming in to the top mark.
I think the Australians are going to be right in this conversation too. They have got that split from these two.
This is a massive moment of the race. We've got the Australians joining from the other side of the race course. And we've got the French and the Americans coming in from the right, and it looks like the right-hand side has paid dividends, but no boats are laying right now. Only the Australians might get through. Both the French and the Americans have got one more tack to do as Jimmy Spithill winds the boat up into attack to face the Australians, but it's the French that have wound up in pressure. It's the French that are on starboard. It's the French that should own this mark, and there is multiple lead changes on leg 3.
Terrible take by the American team there. Again, under the pressure, they really needed to nail that. They could have made it half the Australian team, but the French getting ahead, they just made that mark. They perfected their lay line on that last tack, that one extra manoeuvre. Wow, this final is all on, isn't it?
So the USA goes from first to third at the halfway point. France has now taken over the lead, the most consistent boat really all weekend long, and Australia back in the mix after that early issue.
Down a little if you want.
3-boat finals is where it's at. I just don't know where to look. This race is alive as they sprint downwind in the middle downwind as the French go for a jibe. They need to nail it. We know that it lost the Australians the lead on their first jibe of the first downwind. Let's stay on board, turning the boat. Board lands. Lovely flight control there from Morvan.
Nothing but air.
Nothing but air.
That's what you want.
Yeah. Wow, high pressure jibe. They got the lead. That jibe was massive. Morvan absolutely nailed it. Nothing but air, man.
It's all about keeping your cool right now. And they're doing it at the moment. They're not renowned for it, the French team. They have brought Lee McMillan in since then. See the true wind velocity across the course there too. The French in slightly more breeze, so maybe it's still slightly favour on that left-hand side. But yeah, just keep the cool, Frenchies. Lee, help them through this, mate.
Coming down.
This is leg 4 of 7. Tight crossing here as Australia will have to go behind the French. And look at the speed the Aussies are carrying right now. Upwards of 55 kilometers an hour.
So they're going to come back together here. We're going to have a simo jibe as Australia and France come back together. France will have the right of way because they're on starboard, as it will be explained in between races. And they are going to split the course again. Here goes the board down on the French. Another high pressure jibe, but the Australians are ripping. The Americans have had a sticky downwind. They're over 100 metres off the back of these two. This is the race for the win in Plymouth.
3, 1, 2, here we go. 1.
Oh man, they go around the leeward marks together onto the final 2 legs of the course. It's going to be about which side the best breeze is on here, man.
This is brilliant, isn't it? This is what we want. Let's get those head-to-heads up if we can, and we'll show you the speeds between the boats in a second. Which side would you put, Freddie? The left has looked slightly better from what I've seen so far. It's a really wide course though, so anything can happen. Roll the dice, who's going to win this next cross? You never really know who's ahead until it gets to the cross. The Australians will have the right of way when they meet again. French look pretty good in the distance there, over on that left-hand side though. They're carrying on, they've got a longer board from the top line. They're just tacking now. We'll see as they get in towards the middle.
What a comeback by the defending champions from season 2020. Australia looking like the form they had yesterday to start off this event, winning 2 races in a row before falling home and then fighting themselves into the top 3.
Jimmy Spithill, USA is a fighter, isn't he? He was over 100 metres behind the last time we checked, and he's chomping back into this. A 31-metre lead for the Australians over the French, but they will split again. Will Tom Slingsby tack and face them?
What's amazing is we've got 2 legs to go, and we really, the entire 3-boat fleet are within 100 metres of each other.
He couldn't tack there, no way. He was too close. If he'd attacked, the French would have rolled over the top of him or underneath him. He would have given up the lead. He had to let the French split out. Spilling is waving the camera blade out the way there. Sorry, guys, but it's all about the TV. There's a lot of people watching this, I'm afraid, Tom. So concentrate on the race. See what the French are doing. Keep that boat ripping if you're going to win this race.
Local boy Nick Hutton there popped up before the tank, sailing in the waters where he learned to sail. What a win this would be for him. He's the Australian wild card. It's a battle of nations. 4 Australians on board that boat, 1 Brit. He'd be the happiest Brit in sailing if he won here. But that's not a great tack. There's a lot of splashing, and it looks like the French have done a really nice tack as they're coming back from the right. Yes, it says it's a 21-metre lead to the Australians. This will close down as they come back together.
Can the French lay that left-hand gate? That is a big question too as they get towards the top.
Slingsby says, I've got us not crossing. That means the French should be ahead as we come back. It's now about whether the French are laying the windward gate. Let's listen on board. This is crucial moments.
Key cross.
McMillan disagrees and says Australia's across. But they're both laying the windward marks. Australia are going to get there 2 or 3 seconds before the French, and it's about how they manage the bearaways. Lots of pressure on the flight controllers. Morvan did the last downwind beautifully. Can he do it again compared to Ed Powys?
Rounding at the same time. This is all on. Place your bets, ladies and gentlemen. This is the last downwind leg before the reach the finish. It is all on between these 2 teams.
So 1 more leg to go in about 3 minutes of racing. Can the Americans come back? Will the Australians or the French take a hold of this race, or will someone make a high-pressure mistake?
Oh, this is unbelievable. You can see the white lines on the screen there dictating how far to go until the bottom. The Australians jibe. That was a beautiful jibe. They stayed on the foil. The dagger board lifts up. They now need to get it ripping, and the pressure goes over onto the French. The French have got to be the next boat to jibe. If you fall off the foils, you lose the win. It's all about crew work on the final downwind. Keep the boat in the air. Keep the boat ripping.
Another really key cross coming up here. The French will be the giveaway boat. Can they cross ahead of the Australians? Doesn't look like it right now. Let's see as we get down here.
Okay, Tom Slingsby on board the Australian said we're still ahead, but if he is on lay line, he's got a small advantage.
Can we get on his line?
It's into this gate and then a quick blast to the finish line. This could be for the win right here.
This is the jibe to land the Australians in front of the French. Let's listen to the onboards. Will the French be able to use the down speed of the Australians to step past them?
No issue with him.
No issue with him is the call off board the Australians. And they're accelerating. That might have been the jibe that won the event.
Cross was a move of the day. Yep.
Actually, not yet.
And now the dirty wind coming off the sail of Australia SailGP. That could have been the move as the Americans unable to close the gap as they led at 1 point, now sitting in 3rd. And now it's Australia with a quick blast to the finish line. No more maneuvers needed for them as France in 2nd as they watch the Aussies get up to 60 kilometers an hour.
They did the worst jibe of the day on the first downwind to give up the lead. They did the best jibe of the day to win this event. Is like air's really your weakness, Tom Slingsby. Absolutely unbelievable race.
So the Aussies become the comeback kids at the Great Britain Sail Grand Prix, and the defending champions get their first overall win of the season.
Hey, boys!
What a way to bounce back from last in Toronto to first in Plymouth. And the French coming across the line in second. That is their second podium of season 2. Bravo, Billy Besson.
Hey, thanks, Rick. Cheers, mate. Alright, make it.
All celebration in Australia.
All three of these teams had made the final before in the last 2 events, and it was all about who was going to hold their nerve. We saw some real wobbles out there, didn't we? We saw the pressure, but when it counted right at the end, one more pressure jump. I love that the audio comms coming off the Australian boat were nice and calm. Slingsby sounded calm.
Did you hear
Got
that?
it done.
Slingsby saying the red mist came in a few times there, Matt. What does he mean by that?
Well, he's a red-headed man. He knows he's a fighter, literally. He loves to do a bit of boxing. I wouldn't want to get in the ring with him. And every time, I guess, that sort of red-headed Celtic blood in him sees the better of him, and he gets a little bit mad and crazy. But when it counted at the end, the red mist had gone, and he got the job done. Well done, Tom Slingsby and his Australian crew here winning in Plymouth.
The defending champions doing a fantastic job as they come back. It looked like they were out, barely made it in to the final, but what a performance by the Aussies.
A performance by the Aussies. I'm going to pick one guy out as my sailor on that boat, and that is Ed Powies. He stepped in here because of other crews' commitments elsewhere, with the Olympics and Kinley Fowler awaiting the birth of his second child. Ed Powies stepped in there. He's just rubbing his hands through his hair. He came on board as the flight controller, arguably the hardest position to do in the light airs, and he has absolutely nailed it. Well sailed, Ed Powies, my man of the match.
So Australia bounces back in the waters of Plymouth to get the win at event number 3. Australia SailGP, your winners.
I don't know how we stayed in it.
It'll be an amazing night of celebration for the Aussies as they now turn their attention to Denmark, which is coming up in just a short amount of time. So the Aussies can celebrate now. But guys, let's go back to the moment of the day. This was critical for the Aussies and the win.